Welcome to the VB Toolbox and to part 4 in my reboot series on working with Microsoft SQL Server. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to delete records from your database with a couple of bonus features, I guess. But let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you're just getting here, you haven't been following along with the series, I highly recommend at least watching the first video where we can create our SQL control class. It has all of the nuts and bolts for building your SQL database connection and whatnot. So that is kind of important for this series. But let's go ahead and go to our main form. And in the last couple of videos, we have been building a simple user management system. We learned how to add new users and how to edit users in our database. And in this one, we will be learning how to delete them. So first thing we need is a deletion form. Since we're working with MDI forms here, we're going to add a new child form to this. So if you right-click in your Solution Explorer on your project and add a Windows form, and we can call that something like delete user. And in here, we are going to double-click on that. And when the form loads, we need to make sure that it has a MDI parent. So we're going to say MDI parent equals our main form, and that will allow this form to load up into that form. So now we need a reference to our SQL control class. Okay, and with this we will be able to launch commands against our database. So we'll say private SQL as a new instance of our SQL control class. All right. So now that we have that, we need, in the last video we had a way to search for users, using a wildcard search feature, and I kind of like adding that to all these. It's just kind of fun. It's good practice. And we dumped all of the users into a list box. Well, in this case, we are going to want a checked list box. So we will add one of those to our form. Actually, let's grab a text box here for our main search or filtering. And then look in your toolbox for the checked list box. And that will give us a list box that has the ability to check items off. Okay? And finally, I'm going to bump that up just a little bit here. I'm going to add a button. Just going to scale that to size. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Just make sure your checklist box is wide enough to store the names. And actually, before we do that, I'm just going to jump right into showing you how to delete, and this will be our bonus feature that I'll show you afterward. Because what we're going to do with this is learn how to create a dynamic parameterized command. So that's going to be kind of a cool feature. But if you just came here and you want to see how to delete a user, it's really quite simple. I'm going to just temporarily add another button here, and I'm not even going to change the name of that. I'm just going to leave it as is. I will change the name of our text box to be txt filter, and I'm going to call this CheckedListBox CLB for CheckedListBox users, and I will name this button CMD delete, and change the caption text to delete, or I could use delete users. But for the moment, what I'm going to do is jump in here by double-clicking our button 2. And what we can do is create a simple deletion expression here. I'll just add some parameters. So I'll do a SQL.addParam. And the only parameter I'm really interested in is the username. So alternatively, you could use the ID, but since we're going to use a checked list box, we won't be pulling the ID specifically, though we could. Now, there's a number of ways we could do this, but I'm going to try to just keep this basic here. So this is just going to be whatever is in our TXT filter, because I'm just going to temporarily use that, just so you know, if you don't want to stick around for the rest, you don't have to. You just want to know how to delete items. So SQL.execute query, and we can just say delete from members, whoops, where username equals @user from our parameter. And if SQL.hasException, go ahead and report it if there's an error, then exit sub. Otherwise, message box user has been deleted. All right, we have no checking here, no validation, just a command to delete a user that has been typed into our filter box. Okay. Of course, it's going to help if I actually go back to my main form and double click my delete user. I think I renamed these before, MSI menu strip item delete user. So it's going to double click that. Let's say delete user dot show to make the form visible. When I click that entry. All right. So let me have to open up a connection to my database here real quick. Bring up my tutorial one, tables, members. Doesn't really matter. I don't have to drill down. Select star from members. Okay. So I can see all of my members here. I'm going to go ahead and delete test here and see if that works. User has been deleted. Now let's test the database. Test is gone. It was record 18. So now we did it by the username. If you're going to be deleting records from your table, highly recommended that you use a unique field. Specifically, the primary key is the best one, generally speaking, to use. However, any other indexed fields that have uniqueness, that require a unique record, such as the username here, generally you're never going to allow users to have the same username. That's just common practice. So you could use the username just like we just did in place of the ID, because that's always going to be unique. Otherwise, you run the risk of hitting multiple records with the same value and deleting the incorrect one. So just something to keep in mind. So now you've seen how to delete an item from your database, and that's what you came here for. But if you want to see how to use this checklist box to create a dynamic parameterized delete command so we can delete multiple users at once, then go ahead and stick around. We will jump right into that. I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of this extra, whoops, it's still running. Get rid of that extra button. Shrink up my form a little bit. And let's see. Going to press F7 to jump back into the code here. Don't really need this. Okay, so kind of clean things up there. What I want next is a sub or method to fetch users using my my query, or sorry, my filter box here. So I broke my rule. I always use the fixed single on this, so doesn't hurt anything. I'm going to jump back in here and say private sub fetch users, same as we did in the other ones. First thing to do is refresh the user list. If we don't do this, each time we run the query, it's going to just duplicate and stack those users up in this dialog, so we don't want to do that. I'm going to take my CheckedListBox users items and use the clear method on that to dump anything that's existing, and then we will refresh the values in there. So I'm going to add my params and run my query. Same as we did before, I'm going to say sql.add_param, and I need to grab the users, so that's what I'm going to be filtering by. I'm going to say @users, and for my wildcard search, I add a %sign and concatenate on the filter value, so txtfilter.text, whatever we type in that text box, and then another wildcard. These are SQL wildcards. They filter out, this will filter out anything at the beginning, and this will filter out anything at the end. So everything, the only thing it cares about is what you typed into the text box. So if you put in A, it's going to search for everything containing the letter A. So that's how that works. Next up, I'm going to execute my query. And this is just going to be a simple, I'm going to select a single value, and that's going to be the username, because that's all I want to put in my checklist box. If you want to add multiple items, that is absolutely okay, or if you want to reuse the query for other purposes, or reuse the data set that you get out of that query, then you can store that or just hold on to it. Bring whatever you want in. From members, where username is like, we need to use like when doing wildcard searches, and our parameters, or our parameter. So select just the username column from the members table where the username is like our parameter users. Okay. Then I'm going to loop the rows and return the users to the list. So to do this, I'm going to use a for each loop. I'm going to say for each r as a data row that was returned in our SQL data table dot rows. Go ahead and add it to our checklist box. So we'll say CLB users dot items dot add. And then we want to add the record that we found. So it's going to be R as our data row, and the name of the column that we queried, which is our username. All right. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and run it on form load. So I'm going to say fetch users That's it. Let's go ahead and test that real quick. Make sure we got everything right. All right, check it out. Now, as you can see, everything is all jumbled up. There's no ordering to this. It's just, you know, as it goes through the database, whatever order it finds them in, it pulls them in. So what we can do is break out this query. I'm just gonna add some line breaks here. Make sure that you put a space at the end of each line so you don't have any run-ons. You know, I'm going to drop that down a line. There's our filter. Gonna add another line. And here I'm going to say order by username ascending. All right, so that'll be alphabetical order when it comes out of the database, and it should populate our checklist box in the same order. All right, looks good. So we can type stuff in here. Doesn't do anything yet. So let's add some logic to utilize our filter. We will find our txt filter in our object list, and then what we want is the key down event. So we want to capture when the user presses their enter key after they're done searching or done typing in their search criteria. And I am going to say if e.keycode equals keys.enter, then fetch users. If you don't like that annoying ding each time you hit your enter key in the text box, you can suppress it by saying e.handled equals true and e.suppress key press equals true. All right. So let's give that a try real quick. Make sure it's working properly. If I go to delete users, I want users with GI in them. Just Gimli. Okay. What if I wanted all users with an I in them? Ardaramus, Gimli, Lucinda, and Skippy. All right, so that's working well. Now we want to be able to delete these, select them and delete them. Now I don't want them to auto select. I'm going to leave this default selection action here where you highlight it and then you have to check the checkbox. So let's go ahead and create our deletion sub. Now that we have our fetch users, I'm just going to drop down below that. I'm going to say private sub delete users. All right. Now the first thing we generally do when we are going to delete something, whether it's on our computers or in a database, we ask for confirmation from the user. Are you sure you want to do this? Just so there's no oops. And sometimes there are still oopses, but you know, that's life. But to do this, we're just going to add a conditional message box. We're going to say if message box the selected users will be deleted. Exclamation. Are you sure you wish to continue? Something like that. And here we'll specify the type of message box, and we want a yes/no type. You can do yes, no, cancel, but I always found those to be a little bit redundant. And if you want, you can add a title on that. You could say delete user. And then we'll say if that message box is yes, meaning the user clicked the yes, then do something. Otherwise, ignore it completely. Now what do we want to do here? We are going to have to generate some form of a mass deletion command. So I'm going to say generate a mass delete command. All right. Now to do this, we have to form some kind of some sort of way to increment our parameters, because it's going to use them. I wouldn't say, I don't think it uses them by their order, but we do want to add some sort of counter onto each parameter. So each parameter that is generated in our loop will be unique. And it doesn't care whether it's called users or whatever. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create an auto-incrementing integer value here. I'm going to say dimc as an integer, and this will be a unique ID for auto-generated numbers. Okay, it's just something to make our integer unique, make each parameter unique. And then I'm going to say dim, and I'm going to create a string that is going to be essentially the query command for each deletion. So we're going to generate these query commands dynamically based upon how many users were selected. So I'm just going to call this del string as a string, and I'm just going to leave that blank. Query string builder. Okay, very simple. So now we need a loop to actually generate our delete commands. Okay, so I'm going to say for each I as a string in CLB users dot checked items. Okay, so what we're doing is we're looking for each item that is checked in our checked list box. Okay, and those are the only items we want to look at. And then we're going to say sql.addParam, and we're interested in usernames, but we need to make this unique. It can't be the same one every time, right? So it needs to match, or it needs to have something to make it unique. And what we do is we use that counter so it'll be like user 1. The parameter names will be user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4. Actually, it'll start from 0, so it's 0 based, but you get the idea. And the value that we want for each parameter will be each item that it finds. So this might be, user 0 may be Arderamus, user 1 may be Lucinda, and so it's just going to keep generating these for each checked item that it finds, and it's going to give it a unique parameter name. Okay, so there won't be any duplications. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a string concatenation. We're going to create one big deletion string. I'm going to say del string plus equals. This is the same as a concatenator. It's going to append this command to each line. So I'm going to say delete from members where username equals @user, and then I'm going to break my string and concatenate on another value, and our counter. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and just close off our query string. So it's going to create one of these for every item that is found in the checked items. You kind of see where that's going? Now we need a way to auto-increment this counter. So what we're going to do for each item it finds, it's going to add one to C. So I'm going to say C plus equals 1. All right, that's just going to increment this C variable each time it loops. So it's going to say user 0 is going to be our Daramus. So it's going to say delete from members where username, our Daramus, equals user 0. So you can kind of see how that's going there. Once we have this list of items we want to delete, we can then execute it as a query. So I'm going to say SQL execute queries, and the query we're going to execute is del string. All right, so we're just passing this parameter or this variable into our execute statement, so it's going to create a list of deletions and run them. So I want to report and abort on errors as usual. If something went wrong, I want to know why. I'm going to say if SQL, what would I do? Hello. If SQL dot has exception, and I do want it to report, so I'm going to say true, then exit the sub and proceed no further. Otherwise, if everything checks out, looks good, you can report success. This is optional, this is up to you, but I like to, just have a little something to indicate that everything went okay. In the real world, I'd probably just put a string, like a label or something on the form. The thumbs up, everything's good. The selected users have been deleted successfully. All right. And after you're done deleting your users, we can then update our list. We want to refresh it so it it reflects who is deleted, or more likely who's left. So fetch users. All right. Wow. So that was quite a bit of work, but we got a very powerful tool out of this. So, basically an auto command generator. Now we just need to tie that to our delete user button. So what we can do, jump back to our form, double click our deletion button, and we'll just throw a little condition check in there. We'll say if CheckedListBox CLB users dot checked items dot count is greater than 0, meaning that we do in fact have some users selected, otherwise it will just ignore this. But if there are users selected, then fire delete users. Okay, so hopefully it will ask us if we want to delete the users, and then it will generate the strings necessary, generate the commands necessary, and then run them through our query execution. So let's go ahead and give this a try. Manage user, I'm going to delete some users. I want to delete this guy, and not too fond of this guy, and this guy. So let's go ahead and try this out. The selected users will be deleted. Are you sure you wish to continue? Well, heck yeah, I do. Let's go ahead and do it. The selected users have been deleted successfully. All right, then they are gone. What if I have no users? Nothing happens. Say I'm sick of these sample guys. I'm gonna delete sample user, filtered, yes please delete it, and they're gone. Now the reason it doesn't show anything is because I still have a filter value up here. If I clear that out, hit enter, I can see everybody. So that's pretty much how you can create a powerful query tool, or a command tool, I guess, for deleting users. So we can now create new users. We've created pretty much most of the essentials for a user management system. I mean, naturally in the real world they're going to be a little more complex than this, and there's going to be more values to loop through and take care of, but you know, that's a pretty powerful tool. That's awesome. So anyway, whoops, man, I'm a bad typist. Forgot we had that. Testing 1 2 3. So looks pretty good. Oh, I still haven't fixed that. The username. There's the error testing from our first tutorial. Anyway, that's what you came here to see, and if you have any questions or comments, if you like this, give me a thumbs up or leave me a message. I try to respond as often as I get an opportunity to, so I apologize if I miss anybody's questions, and hope you'll bear with me. I appreciate all the support and help, and wish you well on your projects. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.